another dimension, a dimension of insight, a dimension of understanding. You are entering a place where reality collides with truth. There are no limits, there are no boundaries. This is OffPlanet Radio.
Well, good evening and welcome to OffPlanet Radio Live. It is Wednesday night, May the 29th, 2013, and we have no script, we have no agenda, we just kind of go at this thing intuitively, which is probably the best friggin' radio you're ever going to hear. I'm Randy Maugans. This is OffPlanet Radio Live, and the weather is off the scale. Depending on where you live in the country right now, if you're in Oklahoma, I'm sorry. You guys got the worst of that deal. But the weather is just, it is beyond bizarre. We have gone from nighttime lows in the 30s up to nearly 90 degrees today here on the east coast of the United States, and I watch weather maps, so I know what's going on. We have had an interesting weekend. Let's see, solar activity has been markedly down, so we got some relief from that, but we did have a planetary conjunction last night, and we had a triangulation of Jupiter, Mars, and what was the other? Venus over the skies over the weekend. Interesting time to go out and sky watch. And of course, those of you who can see, see, and know there's a lot of activity going on in the sky. We have a great guest tonight, and I want to bring up my co-host, and we're going to kind of go at it from here. Chris Hawley, good evening and welcome.
Hello, it's good to be here tonight.
It's good to have you back.
And I agree with you. Very strange happenings with the weather and the skies, and just even if you, as you said, if you can see and go outside and look up every day, it's usually odd, different, or gee, that can't be. That's my reaction to it all.
Well, you know, and we've talked about this before, Chris, that the sky is, and over the weekend, I had this surreal moment when I looked at the sky and I felt like I was on another planet. The sky is just surreal now, even in midday. So we're clearly into something, I don't know, a dimensional shift, another level to this whole solar activity thing that's going on. I don't know, but it's very interesting. Did you know that I posted this over the weekend? Robert Bigelow has now basically weighed in with NASA, proposing his projected launch into space, privatization. Chris, have you read this?
No, I haven't. You have to tell us all about it. Mr. Bigelow certainly does seem to control the space program, so let's hear what you're going to do.
Yeah, this came out on the wire over Reuters over the weekend. Sorry, I had a cough there. Nothing like coughing in the air. Corporate researchers may be living on the moon by the time NASA astronauts head off to visit an asteroid in the 2020s. The study by Bigelow Aerospace, commissioned by NASA, shows a lot of excitement and intense interest from various companies for such ventures, said Robert Bigelow, founder and president of the Las Vegas-based firm. I can say this. The projects range from, what a surprise, pharmaceutical research, drugs from space, great, aboard Earth-orbiting habitats, to missions to the moon's surface, he said on Thursday, that was last week, citing a draft of the report due to be released in a few weeks. NASA intends to follow the International Space Station program with astronauts' visits to an asteroid by 2025 and to Mars about a decade later. Obama has proposed a budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, and it requests $105 million for the U.S. Space Agency to begin work on a mission to find a small asteroid and reposition it around the moon for a future visit by astronauts.
Wow.
Where do you want to start with doing the forensics on this? Given our speculations about secret space programs, breakaway civilizations, the testimony from different people that we've been to Mars many times since the 70s, this smells more and more like a smokescreen to me.
Well, I'll tell you, Randy, I think this is a perfect time to bring in our guest, because I would really like to know her opinion on this. Because when it comes to people who know who's who in ufology and knows what's going on out there, Kate Valentine is one of the best. So let's bring her in, because I want her in on this conversation.
Absolutely. Good evening, Kate Valentine. Welcome to OffPlanet Radio.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's great to be here.
It's wonderful to have.
Mr. Bigelow has, set up probably one of the biggest smokescreens at all. He's a very difficult person to know what's going on. And I guess, the old saying, money talks, and so-and-so walks. I guess money talks and spaceships fly. I think that's the whole gist of it.
What's amazing to me is still so much of the public have no idea who this man is, don't know his name, don't know his involvement, and he's been handed over our space program. Not only that, how can we go from a dead program to one that, gee, Randy, we're going to be living on the moon soon. I mean, the pieces are not sitting here. You know what I mean? We went from, nothing mentioned of it, not doing anything, it's dead in the water, to all of a sudden, we've got space stations, we've got bases, we're in a race with China for space. I don't know, Kate, if you know that, but I know this, I think you do, I know you do, that Robert Bigelow came on Easter night on Coast to Coast and came right out and admitted that he's doing all these things, and there's UFOs and aliens, too, people. No, but I was at the doctor. It's amazing. I was at my doctor's today, and I told her all of this, and thought she would think I was crazy, and the woman knew who he was, and took it very well. And I said, I have an intelligent doctor.
Well, Jay Leno has this show. Did you ever see his segments, Jaywalking?
Yes.
Okay, well, he goes and they'll ask questions like, who's the vice president, or, what country are you in? It's like amazing. People are totally unaware. I think it's not that they're stupid or anything. I think they're just so consumed with everyday life, they just really don't care about space travel or aliens or UFOs. I think they have become so accustomed to the idea of an alien, a la Spielberg, that it's just no longer this frightening thing. And I forget who I was speaking to, but I said to them, I honestly think if, we had the proverbial landing on the White House lawn and Obama gets out to greet the first alien visitor, it would be huge headlines for 2 days, and then everyone would go about their business and go, oh, yeah, well, we sort of thought they were here. And that would be that.
I don't know.
Maybe we should have gotten down recently on UFOs and aliens.
Maybe what we should...
I don't know what to think.
Well, you know, that's the whole thing. You know, you're fed bits and pieces. And, you know, Chris, you've been at this longer than I have even. And you know how many people I've spoken to. And I keep bringing up the analogy of the four men with the elephant. You know, somebody gets a trunk, someone comes in with a tail, another person comes in with the feet. But nobody has the whole picture. Honestly, as much influence and money and power as someone like Bigelow has, I don't think he has the whole picture either.
I actually don't think he has the big picture, Kate. I think he is part of a machine spinning a very elaborate web of deception for the consumption of everybody who is earthbound. And I don't know, first off, before we go any further with the conversation, we should tell people who Kate Valentine is.
Absolutely.
I was thrilled to find out, and Chris had kind of put me on to your radio show and your site. I was thrilled to see that you actually do terrestrial-based AM radio on the Atlantic coast of the United States, and you have been putting out these shows for... how many years have you been doing this, Kate?
Actually, 3 years now. I can't believe it, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 years.
So you've been... Yeah, that's about how long I've been doing this show.
Well, my idea on the reason... It's on Friday afternoons, 1 to 2 live. But the reason I picked that hour was that I think there's tons of people... We're just right outside New York City. And I think there's tons of people that listen in on their lunch hour that are not real huge fans of ufology. You know, they sort of find it interesting, but not really. And I think we've introduced it to a lot of people that really didn't have any source. At least it seems that way from the letters I get. And that was my whole intention, was to not... I mean, everybody who has been interested in this knows who Richard Dolan is. They certainly know who Stanton Freeman is. But a lot of people out there don't. And that's who I was trying to get into the fold, because one of the comments that I hear a lot is that there's not many young people coming into the field. And we need that. We really do. So that was it.
Absolutely. Yes.
So you were on,
and we should say that... Right. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, doing AM radio at that time of day, you're kind of hitting a very interesting audience. That's almost peak pre-drive time, mid-afternoon. That's a great slot to have, because when we think about doing paranormal or UFO radio, we generally talk about the late night hours a la coast to coast.
Yes.
But you seem to have penetrated an interesting market in terms of being able to hit the area that you are in. A lot of people don't know. I used to do AM radio back about 10 years ago. The advantages of doing AM radio is the amazing distances that those signals will bounce and travel. How big of a region are you hitting with this signal, Kate?
Well, with the live signal, it will go into Long Island. It goes pretty far out on a good day. Far out is Montauk. Goes up into Connecticut, most of the New York City area, and then down into South Jersey. So it's a fairly good segment of the sort of the tri-state area. But much more interestingly, we're a lot more popular in England, because it goes on in England at 6 in the evening. And that's definitely drive time there, so... It was happenstance. I didn't plan it. I'd love to take credit for it, but I didn't think about it. So, I just like radio because it's fun and it's live and people listen, and it's a fun thing too.
So what was the... Okay, I guess to frame the question best, I need to ask you, how did you become interested in this subject? What is your background with it? And then what made you decide to go full frontal public and do a radio talk show?
Well, like almost everyone I've interviewed, it's since childhood. There's been some episode somewhere in your childhood, and nothing terrifying or horrible, but, it was there. And then from there on in, I mean, I was totally I don't even know what really, and a lot of people can't explain this either. They don't know what draws you into this overwhelming interest. I mean, it's not, like I like other things as well. I did an amateur astronomer and so on, but, I don't have this almost obsessed interest in it, but it's there. And I don't know, I also like radio. I'm a little bit of, I really enjoy having a show too. And I felt a little guilty. People like Chris and Richard Dolan and Stanton Freeman, to bring up those names again, actually go out and investigate, and they find things out. I have never had the opportunity to do that, and I felt a little guilty about it. And most of these people that do it dedicate hours and years and money and careers and God knows what. And then a lot of people don't know about them. And so I thought, well, my part of this is I don't investigate, but at least I can present. I can give these people a stage to express their ideas, let other people know what they found, and just spread information. And so that's why I did it, really, and continue to. And it's fun. And then I get to meet people like Chris, and that's great.
Absolutely, yeah. This is an interesting field because of the dedication of people. Nobody is really doing this for money, so...
no.
That's a joke.
Yeah, we basically pay to do this.
Yes, unfortunately, yes. The only guy making money on this is Bigelow.
Well, he's just living...
Character, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
The guy fascinates me. And it seems for the way you were talking about him, he had some sort of not so nice reason for doing this, but I honestly think he really wants to go into space. I really think, I don't know. I don't think his motives are all that bad. He just fascinates me. I don't know anything about him other than what he does.
I still am on the, what would you call, on the ledge, one way or the other. I can't jump yet as far as Robert Bigelow is concerned, because on one hand, he'll come out and portray himself as being very open and honest about all this and tell us what he's doing. Well, it's open, honest at 1 o'clock in the morning on Easter night when everyone's sleeping. But he did come out and make statements and tell us all what he's going to do, and that he does know that there's unidentified flying objects out there and different beings that pilot them. He made that quite clear, and all of this and all of that. However, people that have had real experiences and know real things and try to deal with him or reach him, it's impossible. Yeah. You cannot reach the guy, you cannot talk to him, you cannot give him information and data that might be pertinent to something he should know. He pushes you away. I mean, the abduction group I worked with and the experiences I've had alone in my life, as well as many other people, he needs to listen to if he's actually going to deal in this area. And he doesn't. He shuts you down. He makes it impossible to deal with him, to reach him, and he collects a group of, like, chosen good old boys that know nothing about any of this to handle the public. And I find that extremely suspicious. And the more I go into that and deal with people that have worked with MUFON or other organizations that had anything to do with Bigelow, I would find out that instead of hiring people that do understand both the UFO community, actually have experienced something, and understand the internet, are the last ones he goes to. He'll go to somebody that's completely has no experience with any of it, and pay them a big salary to what? Chase us away, keep us at arm's length, and that's my problem. Well, I can't figure out why he's not connecting it.
I don't think we're the only ones that have what you would call a problem. And look, you and I, Chris, have talked about this. We did a show on this, and we've talked about it on this show. But I don't think the problem is trying to figure out what kind of animal this is. It's funny, I just listened to an interview with Rich Dolan, and he actually expressed some of the same things you and I are talking about. Dolan is basically calling for I guess you would say the replacement of MUFON. He feels MUFON has completely failed in its mission, and he feels Bigelow's partially responsible for that because of the fact that basically all of the data that's been poured into MUFON has gone in and nothing has come out.
Yeah.
It's gone in, really, and a lot of it,
a lot of shady dealing, and that's unfortunate. That really is.
And he was very quick to add the dedicated people who are working in MUFON, people like the people that you and I talked to, Chris, people who are doing the on-the-ground kind of thing. He's not denigrating the researchers that are working, but what he says is basically the top tier level of the organization itself has been from day one basically controlled by military intelligence.
Really? From day one?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, he tends to really get in on the national security state. I mean, he's really, and in many ways he's quite correct. But anyway, I really am not going to get into politics because you may not like mine, so I'll keep my mouth shut here.
Well, everybody's got opinions about that.
We might end up in a fist fight.
Yeah, and then there's exopolitics, which is another issue completely. But
your parents always tell you never talk about religion or politics, right?
I learned that at a young age, believe me.
Yeah.
There are a few things, not to make a complete turn away from this subject, but Randy, if it's all right, there are a couple of things that I was looking at Kate's past shows that I would like to bring up. And the one thing is, Kate, I did not get to listen to the show. You're going to have to fill us in. But I was very fascinated with the hybrid show, where you had a guest on and you were talking, I guess, about humans and aliens being a real situation with the hybrid situation. But it was easy for me to get out. What was that all about?
I'm sorry you catch me up on this. The only one that I can recall offhand was David Jacobs, who feels that they are, you know his story, where he feels that there is an alien threat, actually, that they're creating a hybrid species that are inhabiting the planet for whatever reason. And then there was Nigel Kerner, who, but that wasn't a hybrid, he feels that a lot of the UFOs we see are actually sentient machines, and they have intelligence and ability, but they don't have what we would call a soul, with appreciation of beauty or music or whatever. But humans still have that ability, although he also felt that we're starting to lose it, that we're starting to become a silicon-based as opposed to a carbon-based organism. And so in that sense it was hybrid, but I don't know, I'm trying to think who else would have been on. David Jacobs is the one that most comes to mind. Can you remember?
And he believes that...
David Jacobs. David Jacobs totally believes that there's been hybrids created, and that they are actually trained to, I'm not going to say infiltrate because that has really bad connotations, but to become adept at passing for an odd-looking human in civilization. I think he brings them to Walmart, but again, that's a different discussion. So, but
how does he still look?
Well, they look sort of like us, but like the pale hair, the larger eyes, very blue eyes. The pointy chin and pale, I think, and very weak sort of people. Very, they're not well developed. They're just sort of like you could almost knock them over with a feather. But they're getting better. They're increasing this hybrid. Just, I guess, like you would breed better cattle or better dogs. You just keep increasing the species, and that seems to be the ongoing mission. Well, you certainly should know about that as far as, because I know you're very interested in abductions, and certainly it seems that one of the prime reasons of abductions was this sort of alien hybrid creation. So
Yeah, that's true. But I was not aware of that description. I've heard other descriptions, but the one thing that seems to go along with this is fair skin, fair eyes, and problems with the sun with people that are involved with all of this. And to me, that's
you pretty much just described me, so I.
Yeah, I know, me too. Well, what can you do? What can you do? It makes me wonder, though, does he think, this David Jacobs, that the people are aware that they are this thing, or that they are not aware and just think that they are a human, but, different maybe from other people, weaker or fairer or anything? Are they aware that they are a hybrid person?
Yes, very definitely.
They are.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And they, David Jacobs used to be very close friends with Bud Hopkins, and so where that would be coming from, and that's how he sort of got interested. He's a professor, I believe, of history at
University of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And pretty accomplished guy. He's at a lot of conferences. He's an excellent speaker. He's actually pretty funny. But my impression, too, with him was that they almost have a human companion that will walk along with them and say, no, this is how you pay for an item, and this is how you select something, and this is how you would go and buy food, and this is what you would say to someone that said hello to you, so that they're sort of coached into just assimilating into the larger culture. But
wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it is when you think about it. And today, again, as we said before, like why people don't have more interest in what Bigelow's doing is that people are so wrapped up in their own lives, and life has become sort of very hectic. And if they see someone like that, that's behaving somewhat within normal bounds, but looks very strange, I mean, they're going to say, oh, wow, that person looks odd, and then just keep moving. For example, you know Denise Stoner, right? And she'll be on, not this coming Friday, but
she was on this show last week.
Okay. Well, did she tell you that story about the women that were in the department store when she was there?
No, I think we missed that one. We got some interesting stuff from Denise last week. That was not one of them.
Yeah, she was there checking out. All of a sudden, everything just stopped dead, and these two very strange women went in, did whatever they did, left, and then everything sort of came back, and everyone said, wow, that was odd, and that was it. See, the problem with this always is that you don't have a stream of data. It's, you'll get if you're in science, you want a nice little line where you can connect the dots. In this field, you have dots all over the place, and there's no way to connect them together. It's very, very frustrating.
I just wrote an article about that. I just wrote that the entire problem with the UFO agenda is that it's disjointed. That there is no place to collect everything in one place where there's professional people to deal with it, or at least people that have dealt with this subject matter to sort it out. It's just all over. It's all over the internet. It's all over everywhere. It's just a mess. And you're right. You cannot come up with a conclusion or even a theory when that is your data. It's impossible. Yeah. And but Randy, what do you think about this hybrid thing?
I think there's a lot there, and I know Kate referred to Nigel Kerner. I've had probably about 10 hours of conversations with Nigel over the last 4 years, and he and I very much agree on a lot of aspects of this that go into alien abduction, test subjects. I've interviewed a lot of abductees who indicate to me that there has been a program to breed and to biologically alter the human gene pool as well. And then there's this creepy suspicion along the way that some of us have encountered some of these beings, and it gets even weirder because how do you prove that? It goes back to exactly what you wrote about and what Kate was talking about. We have tried to approach ufology within the rigors of scientific investigation, but there's something else going on, and it's interesting because Nigel Kerner gets this. He understands that we're dealing with something that defies the normal structures of science and goes into what I guess we would call spirituality. Not religion, but in terms of what we're talking about, we get into some pretty spooky aspects of other worlds, other dimensions, and other realms of being.
Well, of course, we don't know. Go on, Kate.
No, go ahead. Oh, no, I was just going to say, people forget they're aliens. They're not human, and we're putting human thought on an alien being, and it's not to say that they think the same.
No, I wouldn't think. I would expect that they would think the same.
Right.
And it doesn't occur to you ever. And it never occurs to a human that we may do things that they find absolutely offensive and horrible, terrible. And we may, do the same with them. They may think that the way we deal with our young or our old or our sick or with the UFO subject is just, barbaric or totally crazy, and they can't grasp it. We can't, handle each other's different society differences and cultures. Can you imagine two complete different species civilizations trying to figure each other out, much less dimensional civilizations or multiple, alien civilizations? This is a huge thing. I think, Randy, what you need to say is this subject matter is so huge and so unknown that we're only just putting our little pinkies in it. We're only just touching our little pinkies into it. There's so much we don't know. But can I tell you both something very, very quickly? Years ago, was in a chat room that a physicist friend of mine wanted me to come in to increase my scientific knowledge because I said something stupid one day and he got angry at me and he wanted me to educate myself. It wasn't too insulting, but I went and I did it. And at that time, chat rooms were different, and they were more segmented into different things. And there was a physics and a scientific based chat room and Yahoo, and I went in there and it was all scientists, and that's what they were doing, was discussing different things. And there was this one guy in there, and his name was Serious Thinker, but serious like the S-I-R-U-S, serious.
Cute.
Right. Serious Thinker, and he went on webcam because the webcams were just new where you could have video chat. And everybody would have their cameras on you all sat there looking at it. It was ridiculous. Anyway, my physicist friend said to me, take a close look at this guy and tell me what you think. And I finally brought up his camera and made it large on my screen, and I was fascinated. This man had no skin pigmentation at all. He had huge eyes. He had no hair at all. Not an eyelash, not an eyebrow, not a hair on him. And he was thin. And he was weird. His neck would change, go in different lengths. It would be sunk down into his shoulders and then rise back up. And he had a voice that I can only tell you I never knew if I was speaking to a male or a female. It was somewhere in between. And he talked to us, and the other scientists started to then secretly IM each other, what's with this guy, and they started to question him about things in science. And no matter what they asked him, he had the answer. They would give him the most, benign, crazy thing that they once covered somewhere in their education and ask him, and he would know it. And then they would say to him, did you read this book or that book or this book? And he would turn around on this bookcase behind him, and no matter what book they asked him if he had read, he would show it. And to this day, they don't know how he did it. Well, the long and the short of it is we thought he was an alien. And he then disappeared because he gave one of the scientists an address in Florida. They sent him a book and some pictures. He held up the book and the pictures that the man sent him, and they went then to track him because they were so interested in this man. No such address existed.
Oh, my God.
So they don't know how he got the material, but what he told us where he lived was a flat, open area of swamp in Florida. There was no house there, no address there. So now he freaked everybody out. Now I heard that he was tracked down again years later, and that he had what they called Betsy Wetsy. Do you remember the dolls, Betsy Wetsy, years ago? They had and they had that strange hair that he had implanted the strange hair on his head to try to look more human.
Oh, my God.
All I'm going to say on this subject, because I think that they're tracking this guy down. I'm telling you, I think he was an alien. And he was interacting with all these scientists. And that was one of the strangest. And that was one of the strangest experiences I've ever had. I wrote about it. But he was the strangest person being I've ever seen.
Wow.
And I also, I think that abductees get altered, but I think they're basically humans that have been altered by what's done to them. But this guy was something else. He was not a human.
Well, when they talk about altering genetic patterns, I mean, now they're finding that many people have about 2% of Neanderthal genes in them, and they found this whole other genetic makeup that denotes, I'm probably going to mispronounce it, Denisovans, and those are like off the chart different. So, there have been earlier primates that were more or less in the hominid line and that have been altered.
Absolutely.
So who's to say, I mean, was it natural? I mean, because, people forget too that they have these viral vectors that can be carried on asteroids and just carry DNA. I mean, it's like the pod people, like these things float down from outer space and they'll infect a virus, and then the virus infects you, and then you have this part of this genetic mapping. And they say that's what 95% junk DNA is all about. It's all this crap we pick up from all these viruses. So you can absolutely alter genetic code, and I mean, we're able to do it. Now, they were talking, oh my God, there was headlines in the Times. Is it feasible to clone humans now that they've cloned sheep and whatever? And I was like, clone humans? I go, Orwell, where were you? How did you figure this all out so many decades ago? I mean, cloning humans? What the hell? I mean, why would you even want to? I mean, this is when you get into conspiracies and smoke screens and crazy people, and I tell you, it is definitely going to be a brave new world. I don't think we need aliens. I think we're screwing things up enough ourselves.
I do too. And what made me think of this is the one thing you said about that's the department store that they would teach them how to shop. Is the thing that was the strangest about this man was that one of the scientists said something referring to sexuality or sex between men and women. And they got him, roped him, walked him into this conversation, and it was fascinating. He had no clue at all how sexual attraction worked between a man and a woman, or a man and a man, or a woman and a woman, or everybody together. He had no idea what the triggers were. And he said things that were like hilarious, like her hair was down to her feet and she stepped on her hair, and I was so attracted to her. And we were all dying laughing. He would say things totally bizarre. He had no idea how it worked. And that's when we knew we really had something different on our hands.
Well, he sounds like the blind date you wouldn't want to have, I'll be honest about it, you know. Really. But, wow, but to get back to physics, we had Bob Schroeder on 2 weeks ago. Now, I'm not really into dimensions and stuff like that, just because they're mathematical things more than anything else. But he brought up this really fascinating thing, and Brian Greene wrote a book about it as well. And it goes back to the multiverse theory, with many universes through whatever. Let's not even get into that. Just that there are multiple universes. But the interesting point that he brought out, and Brian Greene brought out, is that there's a space between these various universes, and it's called the bulk. And if there is a way to get in and out of the bulk, you can enter and then go back to any universe at any, not only in space, but in time. If you could figure out how to manage that particular little travel secret, you could go back and watch pyramids being built. The distance to Alpha Centauri 4, which is, I think, 4 light years, give or take, would be reduced to 25 miles if you could get in and out of the bulk. And his theory is that that is what the aliens have created. And as you're going in and out of the bulk, you become transparent because you're going out of this universe into the space between and then back to wherever it is you came from. And it so matches, and you're also going to have this burst of light coming in and then that disappearance, and it matches so many of these descriptions of UFOs. I mean, I found that to be totally fascinating, this whole idea of this bulk travel. I mean, that sounds good.
Well, that's going to make my head explode. So, Randy, I'm going to push that over to you.
Well, there's been a lot of theories about dimensionality and what that means, and I was watching the chat room, and the folks in there are like, oh yeah, this is like the ultimate rabbit hole, because most of us don't really have the physics capacity to grasp it, if physics itself even grasps this. But the idea of multidimensionality is something that's really been around, it's been around since I was a kid. It was discussed at great length in the Jane Roberts books, the Seth writings that came out of Jane Roberts' work channeling Seth. And Seth goes into it extensively. And I know people were surprised that I mentioned channeled material, but this was early in my life when I was very much delving into things like this, and it stuck. A lot of the information, a lot of the data that Seth talked about has now surfaced in other realms, including the areas of quantum physics, which have gone into this as well. And this again goes back to the same problem that we have with ufology, is that we have this map in our head that's linear, that's basically limited by 3 or 4 dimensions, and now we're dealing with concepts and beings that appear to defy all of the conventions that we had about our science, our physicality, and even what we would call our spirituality.
Yes.
Yeah. You're so right. But it is a fascinating thought. But the other thing that bothers me too, and I'm going to ask you too, Chris, because you really, you know many abductions and so on. Do they ever talk about that? Like, I know a lot of people will say they've been brought to a ship and examined. Do you ever hear about anyone being brought to a different planet for any length of time? Like, I mean, saying, okay, this is Sirius B, and we do have a lovely planet here, and would you like to take a little tour? Anything like that?
Never. No, I have. Right? To be honest with you, no, I never have. They do. What they focus on is the fact that they know that they were taken and something was done to them, or by the virtue of the act of being taken or the examination, either one, they are made ill. And they focus on the fact that they lose all this time. They have like flash memories of certain things, but not much. And they focus on when they come back. And the poor people usually always put in a strange place and strange clothes and parts of their, body hanging out, and they're trying to get themselves together, is that they're ill. And I don't know if it's like a space sickness because they do something with us and travel, or how they transport us, or what the heck it is, but you come back very ill. And you're vomiting, and your temperature is high, and you'll have rashes all over, and, sometimes you'll have diarrhea for a week, and you're just really completely knocked out. And that has to be something that they are doing, and it's not impossible that maybe they do travel to a different part of our atmosphere even, or something that we can't physically handle. I'm not sure what it is, but and I've heard all kinds of things.
It could be the atmosphere in the ship itself. I mean, again, they're alien; yes. They're not human, and they'll try to imitate this atmosphere. But
they try to imitate it first, and they also may give us chemicals or use drugs on us to numb us so that they can be examined. Or, let's be honest, they affect your brain, because they do go in and take over your memory, and whatever they do, when you come back, your mind, it's like getting a tune-up. People would think I was crazy when I would say that, but after talking to so many people and dealing with it on my own, it would be like getting a tune-up. You'd go away and you'd come back, and the next day you found once you recovered from the experience, you would find you were reading a book a day and really? Obtaining the information, yeah. And, I would, any job I ever had, I rose to being the boss and running it like immediately. And that's the only gift that we got from them. And every single one of us, they were, like the college professor I spoke to, she was struggling at the time she was taken, and ended up, she's like top in her field because it was effortless for her after a few of these abductions. So that is, I think, what happens to our brain when they control the memory situation. They either open up or we're able to flood more of our brain and use it. And but on the other hand, they do terrible things to your skin and stuff like that. So, you win some, you lose some. But your question, no. Not one person has even ever had a full memory of what was physically done to them, and all of them get quite angry when anything anal is brought up, because not one of them ever had any problems or even any inclination that part of their body, which is the trash removal system, was of interest to the aliens. Because we don't believe, they think it's more our adrenal systems may have been drained and used, our DNA, our hormones, things like that, and our brains, but that not much of the digestive system was, we don't think, of interest.
Well, and adrenals and hormones would be behavior and appreciation and response to fight or flight, or fear or love or whatever, or just level of interest and excitement about something new, and that would all be through hormones and adrenal glands. That's interesting.
Oh my God! Don't tell me we're alien Viagra.
You think they came all the way from Alpha Centauri? Well, if they're anything like the guys on this planet, yeah, they do it. Wow, that's so funny.
They drain our adrenal glands, and maybe snort it, and they get all excited and get still and go rushing home to Mama Alien. I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
Anything is possible.
Oh, that's so funny. I've had a shot of adrenal glands. Quick, get me back through the bulk. But you know, but you know what? Also, I was thinking too. Now, I don't care who they are, where they come from. I am sure they didn't arise full blown from the head of Zeus. I mean, somewhere they too had to have some developmental history. Even, let's say, there is no such thing as evolution, and that's up for questions now, but still life had to rise somewhere, and I don't think they were created as full-blown beings able to maneuver through space. They had to have had a history somewhere. I mean, did they go through the cave people? Did they have to develop agriculture? Did they have to develop some sort of a governmental type civilization? I mean, where are they now? You never get any background on these people. You know, I mean, and people that come back don't say that. They say that there seems to be a hierarchy, but they're really not sure. You know, I mean, have you got any feeling at all as to what their history would be?
I kind of think, if you want my personal opinion, that they did all of those things. Caveman, through whatever beings they became, and kept going till they did what we're doing, which frightens the daylights out of me. And that is became more machine-like than biology-like. And then I was only kidding, but I'm dead serious. It might have gotten to the point that they do have to go and find other species and drain and use their chemical biological makeup to keep them somewhat of a biology type form. And I say that because we're heading down the same road. And as long, you know, it started with all our technology, and now to the point, try to get a young person to put down their cell phone, their iPad, or whatever it is. They'll sit and even eat their dinner with one hand on the gadget while they're shoveling in the rest of the food and ignore the people around them. Well, you're hitting that society heading down an extremely dangerous road, and who knows, because none of us do, what's being uploaded, downloaded, however you want to think of it, into us while we are attached to these gadgets. And let me tell you, it's probably quite simple. So we have like generations of people that are possibly totally controlled and brainwashed already. How long before we start attaching the gadget right to them physically? You know that's the next move. And before you know it, we're them. We're going to be out in the universe.
Well, you're basically talking about the singularity now. This goes into transhumanism. And Chris and you and I have talked about this almost from the minute we ever talked to each other, the alarming rate at which we are adaptive to technology, and the fact that we are very close, as we had a pre-show conversation tonight, of moving into being a silicon-based life form. I mean, we don't know how adaptable the human biology is as referring to our mental abilities. How adaptive are we really in terms of, if, you know, I don't buy into the classic evolution, but what I'm talking about here is the scary thought that we are now adapting, and basically we think we're assimilating technology, or is technology assimilating us?
Good point. Good point.
Yes, absolutely. Randy, spot on.
And I say that as somebody who I am not a Luddite. I am extremely technologically adept, and to the point where it scares me sometimes. I've been around computers for as long as pretty much there's been computers, and it scares me how easily I adapted to them. And I think other people need to be humanity needs to be circumspect about how they relate to technology and what the effect is on us on every level, because basically our culture is moving down this road where I do think we're dangerously close to what has been classically defined as the singularity.
Is that, I'm not really that familiar with the meaning of that term. Is that like a hive mentality where everybody's connected to everyone else? Is that it?
Well, the singularity was basically defined by a number of people, including in the popular culture, Ray Kurzweil. But it has to do with the effect of what happens when machines outpace human intelligence. In other words, when we get to the place where we have created machines that outstrip our own intelligence and our own basic biology, where we become redundant.
I think that's already sort of happened. And maybe that's
I think it's happening.
I really do. And maybe that's what Bigelow is sending off into space. You know, the sentient machines.
And what's also very scary, and it's the three of us here, I think we use the technology, because I complain about it all, but I use it. But that's the key. I use it I use it as a tool to do what I want to do. But most of the people, the young people out there, don't. They are the tool. They're being used to do what they're being programmed by these machines to do. They're not using it to, like, better themselves, really. They're using it to be on Facebook and Twitter and be connected to a grid. And once you take and connect yourself up to a grid 24 hours a day, and I also get away from this stuff as much as possible. I do not stay connected to my computer. I turn it off and leave. I will not carry a cell phone. And guess Brandy's probably tried to get me a lot of times. I'm gone, right? Anyway, you know, I don't do that. But I had an experience with a 25-year-old during Easter, because the cell phone at the Easter dinner table was a bit much, and I said something about, you got to be careful, you get addicted to that. And I had this happened with a few other young people. This was a perfectly nice, charming young man that immediately got nasty. Nasty and belligerent over that gadget, to the point where I was taken back that he would speak to me like that. It's not the first time. So there's already something wrong, that they are physically addicted to these things, where even suggesting making the split makes them turn immediately aggressive and nasty. So, you know, and you know, and I said to myself, oop, we are really on a dangerous road, and we're just speeding down it as fast as possible. So I kind of think that that's happened in other places, because that's where technology, you know, will bring you to. But a machine-like, I believe so. I think the things that I've had to deal with in my life were more machine-like than biology-based. I just felt that coldness, that like a military, everybody knew what they were supposed to do and did it. There wasn't like a leader or a mother or a father or a captain. It was very, I don't even know how to put it. It was machine-like. And I do think that that they do need to try to grasp on to some type of biology-based life form. And it could be just force sensation. They may have lost the ability to feel. And they're trying to, you know, they recapture it.
That was what Nigel Kerner wrote about. And at first, when I first read his book, I thought, no. And then as I went and thought about it some more, I thought, I think he's right. I really do. I mean, we were joking about it, the soul-sucking vampires from outer space, but, you know, I said that in jest, and then I stopped and I thought, hell, I think that's exactly what they are. And it really scared me for a while.
Well, I do believe they take something. They may give us something too, but I do believe they are taking something, Yeah. Without question.
A couple of this touches on a number of interesting areas, and Kate, you have interviewed a fair amount of people with military background. We kind of draw the line in the UFO paradigm going back to post-World War II, and specifically 1947 and Roswell. In the period since the Second World War, we have lived in a complete whirlwind of development. I don't think anybody who lived prior to World War II, who did not live through this, would completely believe their eyes of how phenomenally things changed in a period of about 60 years, specifically here in the U.S. But it feels like something was seeded into the culture. It feels like after World War II, we suddenly have this whole military-industrial complex that gears up. We have the National Security Act. And, you know, this is where guys like Rich Dolan, they're dead on. They get it. There was something that happened. And if you read the National Security Act, and I have, you have to wonder, was this paranoia over the post-World War II threat coming from communism, or were they responding, or were they, even worse, were they preparing for something else that was coming? What is the sense that you get on two fronts? The advancement of the military, which went way off scale after World War II. Basically, this whole thing inverted itself. The military at one time was part of our government, and by the period of the 1950s, it looks like the military itself took on this entire entity itself. What is the sense that you have from people that you've interviewed about the technology that has been seeded into the culture, either via let us say, off-world sources or the military itself, and the effect of the military on our culture now, this militarization that we're now seeing? It's just off the map. After Boston, I'm convinced we're in a military state right now. So that's two questions.
Definitely.
Oh, a lot of questions.
But I mean, first of all, there was Phil Corso who said it was all back-figured. But and then they just made Phil Corso out to be a total idiot, and it was all self-aggrandizement and nothing else. I find that difficult to believe. I think the man was telling the truth. Who knows? I'll tell you, whoever is in charge certainly knows how to cover their tracks and cover them extremely well. And I mean, forget the military. You now have the media bouncing in, joining too. I mean, so much came out of World War II. It was the beginning of the space age. It was the beginning of the transistors, computers, and everyone forgets that there was tremendous social change. What Hitler brought in was a blitzkrieg, a military that could take over a country in a day. I mean, that was unheard of before. And on top of it, he knew how to manipulate the masses, so to speak. I mean, he brought in propaganda to the nth degree. Then he died. And you know what they always say, Germany lost the war, but the Nazis didn't. And a lot of that is still out there. I mean, look at the mass media today, the propaganda that's fed. Who the hell knows what's true and what isn't true? You don't know anymore. You don't know who to trust, what to go. And then on top of it, they have, there's the military, but I think the military answers to, as Edgar Mitchell said, a whole different government, the breakaway civilization. That all came out of World War II. Len Kasten wrote about this as well as Rich Dolan. It was a huge turning point in the human race. I grew up with my grandmother and my great-grandmother. When I was in third grade, they were astounded at what I knew on the third grade level. And let me tell you, it was a long, long time ago, and it wasn't that much that I knew. There's been a manipulation, I really feel. Where it came from, who's manipulating, I know we're being manipulated, certainly. People can't put their finger on it, but there's that strong feeling with almost everybody that nothing is what it seems to be anymore.
Yes.
I mean, look at Eisenhower. Eisenhower is probably the last of the true presidents that maybe he was being manipulated toward the end, but I think when he began his career as president, he was still an American and still concerned with the population of this country. I don't think that's been true with anyone since then. I really don't. I think they were all, whether they wanted to be or not, whether they were in on it, so to speak, or not, I think they were so manipulated by this outside power.
Whatever.
But even forget, what about Woodrow Wilson, World War I? Well, I can't forget the exact quote, but he said, there is a power out there so evil, so controlled, so secret, that those who know it dare not speak of it above their breath. And, I mean, so there's something out there. I agree with you. If it's UFOs, if it's something else, Chris, you and I are both going crazy trying to figure out what the hell it is.
Yes, right. And don't forget that here we were at war with, the Nazis and Germany and Hitler, and it ended. And what was the first thing America did? Well, not the first thing, but what did America then do? They went over and gathered up all the Nazi scientists, shipped them over here, and put them to work at Plum Island, right off of the coast of Long Island, New York. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
So, there's and they did unspeakable things out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yet it was kind of, just the way it was, and everybody went along with it, and it was covered up, and the media catered to us not knowing about it, as the media does with, I think, just about every subject. They gave us, the Kardashians instead. And they ran amok. They just ran amok out there. And terrible things happened. And it is by a power greater than what we know, that we realize. And I will go right along with you. I think that the presidents, and I know the other abductees do too, are all just a mouthpiece that are being handled by something completely different than what we think, So those are all very frightening things, but I think they're very truthful. Randy, are we going to take a break?
We are, absolutely.
I could use one.
Perfect segue. This is a perfect place to do that. Let's take a break and come back in about 6 minutes or so. And boy, I'll tell you, this hour went fast. It was breakneck and very interesting. So we'll do that.
I told you, Kate's the one.
Let's, before we close out the hour, because we do these in hour segments that then go out onto the internet, Kate, tell people where they can find you, where they can find your radio show.
Oh, sure. Just go right on Kate Valentine UFO Show, and that's all you need to do. It'll come up on the evil internet. Who knows everything about everything? But it's just Kate Valentine UFO Show. And I'll give a shout out to my grandmother. When I was growing up, she was always interested in talk radio back then. And we're going back a long John Neville Silver, I forget the guy's name, and her last name was Valentine, and I knew if she knew that there was a radio show with her name on it, she'd be thrilled. So that was another reason.
Oh, that's so nice.
That's awesome.
That's lovely.
We're going to take a break here. We'll come back on the next segment with our guest, Kate Valentine, and my co-host, Chris Holly. We'll be back in a few minutes. This is OffPlanet Radio.
To another dimension of insight, a dimension of understanding. You are entering a place where reality collides with truth. There are no limits, there are no boundaries. This is OffPlanet Radio.
And we welcome you back to the second hour of OffPlanet Radio Live. And it is lively tonight. Having a lot of fun with this conversation. Been informed that while we were in process the first hour, in the background at Kate's location, we had a birth. A litter of puppies was brought into this worldly domain. You know, those kind of things, sometimes you just have to celebrate them. That the miracle of life continues on a planet that sometimes seems so bereft of humanity. But it's those little touchstones that remind us of that. You know, I felt kind of outganged at some points in the first hour because I got two ladies on here, and we were talking about, you know, the cultural aspects of things. I don't know what flashed into my head. You know, my brain goes in some strange places, but I was thinking of this movie. When was this made? Was this the 80s? Earth Girls Are Easy? Well, it transfigured into Earthmen Are Idiots, and we're not all that way, but sometimes I got to tell you, the male of the species tends sometimes to go towards the idiotic. Present company accepted, because I know the audience out there here is exceptional, and my guests and my co-hosts are exceptional as well. Welcome back for the second hour. Chris Hawley and Kate Valentine, welcome back.
Well, thank you.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, it is.
So I think it's wonderful that the puppies came into the world. There's nothing better than a soft little puppy. Let's face it.
Oh, I know. She's doing so great, and I see. This is another theory I had too. So it's a young dog, and again, it was brought up from some horrible situations, and it was too far gone to spay. So I just fostered it until it had the puppies. But listen to this. Now she's approximately a year old, okay, and this puppy comes out of nowhere as far as the dog's concerned. And she brings it over, and it's nursing on her, and she's cleaning it up. The afterbirth is gone. She's got it totally protected. I mean, I walked over to see how they were doing. I got the evil eyeball, and but this is just like, we call it instinct, but just as like you had your phone you were talking about before. So you pull it out right now. And you just say, where is the Mona Lisa displayed? I think it's in the Louvre. No, it's over here at the Met. And you go, well, let's look it up. So you have this little device in your hand. You go, boom, boom, Mona Lisa. And then it goes, no, it's in the Louvre. Okay. Now, all that information is up there in the air. And all you need is proper antenna to pull it down and make sense out of it. And my theory is that what we call instincts in animals is that they just have proper antennae, proper receptors, and that information is constantly up there, and they just pull it down, and they act on it. Like, that's how birds know to do nests. That's how, spiders know how to do webs. And I'm wondering if that's the case, if humans have really good receptors, which we do, I mean, we also have instincts, and are we being force-fed this information? Well, maybe it's all up there in the air, and what they did was adjust our antennas, receptors, whatever, and now they're going, here you go, Earthlings, this is what you need to know, and it's all coming down, and that's why we've made such remarkable progress. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about animals and instincts. But anyway. Well,
and it raises an interesting point, because you cannot have the conversation about UFOs and aliens and not talk about human consciousness, because now, based on the testimony of the people that we've all talked to, there's another comparison on the table. And one of the things, and I wanted to talk about this anyway, so I'll toss this out. one of the things that I've had a consistent conversation with, whether it's been people who are what we call contactees or what we call abductees, and they're in some ways they're very different classes, but they're experiencers, is the fact that we're aware now of beings who are somewhat beyond us, but at the same time, and this was a conversation I remember having with Nigel Kerner as well, there's something about the human that is utterly fascinating to these extremely intelligent beings. In other words, it seems like we're kind of on the cusp of a change in consciousness, or we're in process. That's what I really think. And at the same time, these super intelligent beings, there's something about us that they want to tap into. And I don't think it's just genetics. Anybody want to grab that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's why they keep coming here too. And it's maybe they're as fascinated by us as we are by them. That could be. I don't know. But Chris, you've had more personal experience with these beings.
Yeah, I think that's a very big possibility. They're definitely attracted to, and I think we're an easy farm. I mean, we farm ourselves. We are a sustainable product. We keep reproducing, and what they need is constantly here. But they are constantly, I think it goes back from the very first time we were sat in a cave, that they've been coming here and using us for whatever it is they do. Be it whatever, chemical, spiritual, whatever it is, emotional. As I said, we could be their little drug for pleasure because they can't feel it anymore. And whatever it is they take from us and utilize, I think they've been doing it for thousands of years, and are going to continue to, because we keep reproducing ourselves. So as long as they can keep us contained to where they can use us at will, everything's hunky-dory. And I believe that secret power that we all refer to or worry about or are concerned about because in our souls we know it exists, that is something that possibly has a very, very well set deal with these other beings, entities, whatever you want to call them, that they can come and use us as the farm and take what they need, and we can continue. It's simple as that. And we can continue surviving. I think that's a big, big part of it. I don't think they have much emotional attachment at all to us or even understand that. But they might be trying to, and that's what they're taking from us. But I don't know. If I did, I would have the answers to everything. I don't know what they use us for. I just know that they use us.
So in your mind, there's absolutely no doubt that there are alien beings in contact with humans.
Absolutely.
See, now this is my problem because I haven't had personal experience, and it's such a foreign idea to me that I totally believe you, but I find it unbelievable.
I know most people.
I can't wrap my mind around it. I need to physically see an alien to believe it. And I guess that's a human characteristic, too. But
isn't it interesting, Kate, that you are on a radio show talking about UFOs and, by extension, aliens? In a lot of ways, I find that quite amazing. It's not a stretch for me. It's not a stretch for Chris. But I think people who are curious about the subject intuitively sense there's a truth to this. And I think that truth is borne out even in ancient history. I just don't think we've called them aliens. And I think if you take that word away and you begin to extend that into the realm of other beings, however you imagine that, now we've got a more manageable situation.
Yes.
Good point.
And
really
I do think, and I also think on some level, it's distasteful, it's uncomfortable, it's something that people would prefer maybe wasn't there to deal with. And believe me, as one that has had to go through things I didn't understand and don't have a clear picture of it in my head other than I could tell you in detail what a craft looks like over your head, I can't tell you what it looks like inside because I was knocked out cold. I couldn't tell you. But I saw it, and they dealt with me, and they did things to me, and they returned me, and then they did it over and over and over throughout my life, which is unfair, and I don't like it, and I didn't want it. I had no choice. So,
right.
Yeah, they're there. But you know what? I never said to you that these things that are taking me are completely anything one way or the other, because I don't know. And I always felt when I was 14 years old and had a clear vision of a UFO, and my two girlfriends standing next to me, all three of us together, experienced this, along with a bunch of other kids. I saw what was a human form looking down at us, and it had a head and two arms. That's all I could see, and it was like leaning forward, looking out this window panel. So I always felt there was some kind of human connection also there. Mm-hmm. And then as I got older and I thought about Plum Island and the Nazis, and they were supposedly involved with aliens, I thought, you know what, I think this is a combination effort here of aliens and humans working together to let the aliens do what they have to do. I don't think any human, I don't care who you talk to or what experience they had, I don't think one of them ever really saw an alien in its natural form. I think they're in containment. I think they're in containment suits, space suits. They're like a second skin. They might be light or energy, and they conceal themselves into a package that they can deal with us in our form, which is a head, arms, and legs. Or they are so repulsive that we would be frightened to death if we actually saw one. And I don't think that they can survive too easily without a lot of adjustments in our atmosphere. So I do think that they are basically in suits or protected, and we've never really seen one. So that's why they all talk about grays. Just like every astronaut looks the same. I don't think we have any idea what they look like.
That's an interesting point.
Or what they are.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Even if, I don't even know if they are of material form. You know, I'm not sure. But all I do know is that was not the things, flash things I've had and others like me have, are not of flesh and blood, or of flesh and green blood, whatever it is, being. It wasn't a living being. It was more the same thing, a machine-like or in suited. So, you know, that's one thing that drives me crazy in this community, that's not talked about more. Because it's not even logical that these beings could just be so different than us and be in our atmosphere and all survive together. It's not logical. So, you know, I do think that we've never seen one.
Yeah, that makes such good points, because wherever, let's say they are from a distant planet and not from this planet, I'm sure the atmosphere has to be somewhat different. I mean, on this planet, we couldn't have survived 300 million years ago. So, I mean, we've gone almost like a alien planet here. And, you asked me why I did the show. It's, I'm sort of coming to the end of my life now, and this thing has just bothered the hell out of me all my life, and that's why I keep talking to all these people. I'm hoping that somewhere, somehow, something is just going to ring true, and I'm going to say, oh, okay, that's the answer. My son always jokes with me. He said, you're going to be lying there dying someplace. I'm going to be running around the corner. Mom, you landed it, and I'm going to go. That'll be it. But I just can't, no matter what people talk to me about, like dimensions, abductions, this, that, the other thing, there's always something missing there, Don't you get that feeling too? Mm-hmm. Like, okay, that could be true, this could be true, certainly that could be true. I'm sure this person is telling me the truth as they know it. I have no doubt about that. but there's something missing. There's just something base to all this that is not being, I don't know, I guess that's what they're
I think you're grappling with what almost anybody who does this research grapples with at some point. I've kind of reached the position where I'm going, we're looking for the single bullet theory. But
right, and there is not one.
We may not be talking about one thing. We may be talking about many things that overlap.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that the things that we have dealt with aren't all spirit, that or all energy or all light. We don't know what we're dealing with. And I don't think all of us have dealt with the same thing either.
No.
As Randy just said, I think there's all kinds of things happening and that we're dealing with as humans that we don't understand, and you're not going to find, it's not a gray from this planet or a soul from another universe that can go into that bulk and get through and then go back to his own and be in a different body or something. We are dealing with all of it, and that's the great mystery of life. There's so much that we don't understand. But look at this planet and the different pieces of life and life forms on this planet. It's mind-boggling. There's life forms on this planet that we have not discovered yet.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine what in the universe and the dimensions and the bulk and the multiverse, what's going on out there? So what you have to do is say to yourself, there's a lot of people jumping on here and lying to you and making frauds and fakes. And there's a lot of people telling you the truth. And you know what? You have to just be open-minded enough to believe it could be all of it.
Well,
it could be all of it.
You know, Kate, I noticed you've interviewed, his name just slipped right off of my mind, Nick Redfern. And I've interviewed Nick a number of times now. And one of the things I love about interviewing Nick is he's full of wonder. He's like a little kid in a lot of ways. Just he pokes around the edges of things, but he goes into the cryptozoological aspects of things and the different creatures that exist on this earth that we don't understand completely. And what Chris just said there about the fact that a lot of what we consider alien is in fact things that are part of our surroundings that we're not aware of. I mean, I've seen weird insects and I've looked at them and went, wow, that's completely tripped out. It looks like something that was hatched out of a nuclear laboratory. And it's just some bug that I've never seen before, especially if I'm traveling somewhere. You go into the desert and you see different bugs, and you go into the mountains and you see different bugs. But we're still discovering things about our own environment. And so now we're kind of grappling with this idea that there are these beings, and what do we do with that data?
So you're all
not to mention.
I was just going to say, so we're like at the beginning of discovering all these things around us. Maybe that's what they're interested
just starting.
in. Yeah.
Or rediscovering.
Wow.
The conversations I have with people sometimes are a lot of what we go through even in our own lives isn't so much learning as remembering. There's things that I think we remember that are, I don't know, I mean, they're echoes of other lives, they're echoes of other dimensions, they're echoes of our own consciousness that extend out. I mean, you can get real trippy with this. But a lot of it is just knowledge that we're tapping into because we're aware of it. Because when you open your eyes to something, you invite that into your consciousness, and now, bam, a whole other universe opens up.
Yeah. And don't forget, that's true, but when I was growing up, my father was famous for, I'd ask him a question and he would say to me, "You're not old enough. When you're old enough, I'll talk to you about it," right? I was married and I still wasn't old enough for him to have certain conversations with me. But I think, in a sense, that was the story of mankind on this planet. We were just not old enough to be told things yet, and we are now approaching that point where we can understand enough about physics or physics of this part of the universe and are surroundings and technology where we're getting old enough for them to now approach us more and give us more and have more contact with us, and it's slowly starting. And Mr. Bigelow, I often wonder, is he part of this? Is he human? Or is he the catalyst? I don't know. Time will tell.
Well, Mr. Bigelow, we're still waiting to hear back from you on our proposal for you to fund us, too.
Yes. I've asked him twice. Talking about animals, Kate,
Yes.
I saw you did a show on Bigfoot and UFOs, and I have to tell you, I had a hilarious conversation with a son. He's a grown man of one of my friends who's a Bigfootie. I don't know how else to explain. He loves the subject. And, you know, he went up and did all kinds of things searching for them, and he's talking to me about it. I'm looking over, to the table at him, and he says, well, what do you think? I said, I don't think you're ever going to find them. I think they are put down, they wander around, and they are picked up and taken away again. I don't think they live out there. I don't think they reproduce on this planet. I don't think they actually stay here. I think they visit, like many other things that visit and then go away. I don't know if they're from the interior of the Earth or a UFO or another dimension, but I don't think they're full-time residents. I think they're visiting, and that's why we can never catch them or find them or gather them up. And he got so mad at me. But I was just wondering, what's your thoughts on it?
Oh, well, no, I actually think they do exist. I think they're just a big land ape, but I think they're intelligent. And I think they realize that if they ever come in contact with us, the humans, they'll be hunted, killed, or put in a zoo. So from childhood or Bigfoot babies on, they are told, you see those creatures? Run like hell. Don't even stop. Just keep running. And I don't know. I think there are some creatures out there. I mean, it wouldn't be impossible. I mean, there used to be woolly mammoths. There used to be lions and tigers all over Europe. The Romans used to use them for entertainment. And, they've died out. There's been evolution. There's been changes. Bigfoot and cryptozoology sort of doesn't interest me that much because, I can see the possibility that they're there. And if they are, great, and if they're not, okay, too. That part doesn't get me. What gets me is, and now I thank you very much for bringing this up, because there are so many things that we don't know about, and that maybe that's what has fascinated me all these years. Like, we're really right on that, and maybe that's what the UFOs are, too, like this sense of wonder and awe, and like, I just want to know what it's all about, and maybe that's why they're feeding all this information. So maybe the age of technology is not so bad. Maybe they're just enlarging our brains so we can understand things. I don't know. I guess we never will know.
There's another side to this as well, and we've sort of lightly touched on it. Chris kind of backed into it a little bit, and it has to do with what we talked about in the first hour with the military. I've interviewed maybe a half dozen abductees who have, in most cases, related to me the existence of military somewhere in the backdrop of their abductions or in their past. And this came up last week, interestingly enough, with Denise Stoner and Kathleen Martin when we were interviewing them. And it's on the record, so I can talk about it. They kind of backed away a little bit, and I think I know why they did that. But there is this consistent thread that I have followed for a number of years that has to do with what are called MILABs, military abductions, and the fact that there seems to be a very strange overlap between what I will call black ops military and what we are referring to as off-worlders. Kate and Chris, you can both kick in on this. Kate, I'm curious to know if you've encountered any conversations about MILABs or the presence of military within the constructs of abduction.
No, the only one was Travis Walton, who, when he escaped from wherever he was, ran into some human-like military figures that would not speak to him. Mm-hmm. But I think he was the only one. That was, I can't think of any others. But then you go back to Betty and Barney Hill. He was describing some sort of a strange figure, but it did have a military type uniform. Now, maybe he was just seeing that, or trying to place it into his own context, but he did describe it as having, looking almost like Nazis and being in uniform. So, I agree with you. I think there is a tie-in with the military on this planet and with that otherworldly creatures. Yeah, I agree with you. That seems to be a consistent feeling, if not thought. I mean, look at even the one up in Indian Point, the nuclear power plant just north of Manhattan.
Yes.
And there's been numerous reports of craft overhead. And the one man, and again, this is anecdotal, and he would not go on record, said that he saw an alien just come right through the wall and fiddle around with the dials and then go back out and leave. And then you have like Robert Hastings telling about them shooting, turning down silos, and actually in Russia where they turned the missile on and then off, thank God. And but the military does seem involved with it. I think they're the ones holding the secrets too. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have enough data to think about that.
Chris.
But
well,
Chris would probably
over my years of doing this, I did interview John Vasquez. I think Vasquez is his name.
Yeah.
And he was a guy that had a terrible experience on a military base, and I'm sorry, I can't remember where it was. I think it was in Virginia. And he had what he called, he had a UFO experience where the men were all brought out in this field, and this tremendous light came down upon them, and it was mass hysteria, and they all ended up then with lost time events, laying on cots. It was just this horrible thing. And there was military men and other things there. And he got no respect about, telling his story. And I listened to it, and I was very unsure of it, to be honest with you, but I did write about it. And after I wrote about it, about 4 other soldiers came and wrote to me and said that they've had the same experience, and another guy was there at the same time and was there when he had the same experience. But 2 others, or 3 others, had similar things happen to them on military bases. Well, I can't think that all these men would lie about this. They had no reason to. They didn't want to become famous. They didn't want me to use their names. They just wanted me to be sure to know that he wasn't lying. These things took place in the military. And then, of course, I go back to Plum Island. Well, guess what was about, a few miles at best away from Plum Island? Camp Hero. Camp Hero is a military base that has a terrible reputation for all kinds of horrible things going on there. And mind control and aliens and everything else was attached to this. And that was a big military base. So, and my own feelings was that I didn't know if they were military, but they were definitely, I thought, humans around with the things I went through, which would make me angry, like, why weren't they protecting me? I'm just a kid. I'm 16 years old. This shouldn't be going on. And when I was 14 and had that first original thing where they took me and hurt me very badly and my friends, our parents did call and report it, and a military man came to my house and examined me and was quite angry and very clear to my parents that they were not going to talk about this.
Really?
And, what can I say to that? Yes, he threatened my mother that it would not be good for her to be calling around and, pushing this and everything. She'll be fine. That's fine. And then he examined me. I don't even know what he was. Because I remember him scraping my skin. I had a bad rash, and taking it with him. And then we were told keep your mouth shut. And frankly, my parents were frightened. They were getting, and another parent had the same thing happen to them, and they decided to let it go. And the third parent was so scared, would only cry and hang up the phone, wouldn't talk to them about it at all. So it was a terrible experience, not only for me and my friends and the wounds that we received, but for our families. They felt threatened. So that's my experience with the military and this subject. Not a good one.
No. I know, and they try to present the military in such warm, fuzzy lights. I mean,
yeah. And then on the other hand, I wrote about pilots and UFOs, and the only pilots that I talked to were all ex-military men. Every single pilot, whether he was at the time a commercial pilot or a private pilot or whatever he was doing at the time I interviewed him, they did do time in the military, and every single one of them confessed to me that they had experiences with UFOs while flying in the military, in the Air Force, and were told you were never to talk about it. Including the fighter pilot who did many tours over Vietnam, said he always had them around. They were always also out on with them. So that's very interesting.
Wow. So, do you think we'll ever get even a small answer? Even though there's many things out there, do you think they'll at least let us know one of them?
Well, Kate, in your lifetime and mine, because we're a little bit down the road more than other people, I don't know.
Way down that road.
And Randy too. Right, and Randy too. You know, he's closer. The people listening to us, though, they may, if they're like under 40 or something, may know. But I don't know if we'll ever find out.
I will just say this. We keep looking for authority figures to give us truths that I think we're dangerously close to uncovering anyway, just by virtue of what we do. The fact that we're having this conversation goes on 1,000 times every week on the internet with different talk radio shows and people writing and blogging. I'm actually an optimist in this regard, because I'm not expecting the government to tell me a damn thing. Because even if they do tell you something, you're never going to get full disclosure from a government, because there is too much liability. If you were just to take the UFO abduction scenario and triangulate that into military presence, they have a liability aspect. I would expect that if they were to come out and give full disclosure and tell you what went on out in White Sands, what goes on in Dulce, what goes on in military bases at Wright-Patterson or anywhere else, they're going to have to disclose damaging information that is directly culpable and actionable. So you better believe that they've got their paper shredders, they're drilling their hard drives, and basically no, they are not going to fully disclose. We're going to do that.
That's a good point. I mean, look at Area 51. They denied that there was anything there for so long, and then they couldn't deny it anymore. So, yeah.
And our military, I don't think any military on this earth or any government on this earth is in control of the situation anyway. It's not them that have the right or the option or the ability to disclose. It's the aliens. And when they're good and ready, it'll change. Not until.
Yep.
And I think that they're going to still use us a little bit more before it changes.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. And then again, you know, sometimes I get a little bit, I don't know, I think, who needs them? The hell, we're going to be out into space ourselves soon, so who needs you guys? I think one of the best headlines I've ever read in the New York Times was when the shuttle first went up. The headline was, "We are now a spacefaring people." And I thought, damn, that's really right. I mean, it'll take another 100 to 200 years, but We are. We're out into space. I do think that there are bases on Mars. I do think that the far side of the moon has a lot of interesting things going on. The fact that they're trying to capture an asteroid to orbit the moon, what the hell is that all about? Why would you want an asteroid orbiting the moon? You know, I think what they're going to do with the asteroid is sort of convert it in some bizarre way into a spacecraft. You know, because it's big, it's roomy, it's got lots of protection. So just, you know, hollow it out, make it nice, and stick a propulsion on the end. I don't know, but believe me, that's...
Well, it seems to indicate if Obama... if Obama is talking about commandeering an asteroid, he's already admitted in a very interesting way a hint at probably our ancient past, because different people from different streams have told me flat out that the moon is an artificial satellite, that basically it was commandeered and it was brought into orbit. And if you look at it, it's too perfect. It's just too perfect to be an accident.
And it really, really rattled their gourd, so to speak, when they exploded the rocket there. Ooh, 3 now. When they exploded the rocket there, and then the moon reverberated because it was hollow. Mm-hmm. And then, after they discovered that, then they sent those twin satellites up, the gravitometers, and they realized there's this whole big gravity patches all the hell over the moon. It's certainly not a solid structure. So, the moon has fascinated me since I've been a kid. I mean, it's just, you know all these things, so I'm not going to bring them up, but how it creates the tides, how this, how that, the fact that it rotates so we never see the back of it. I mean, the whole thing is just, and now they're saying the same with the Martian moons, too. And,
Right. I was just going to say that. Isn't that a coincidence?
Yeah. Man. What is it? Just another coinkydinky.
Another coinkydinky.
Yeah. But, they, so now, you're right, though, Rin. So Obama is just admitting that they're doing now what was done a long, long time ago. Wow. Amazing. That's what I mean. There's so much out there. Damn it, I want to know this stuff. And, I don't know. You're right. But, I've been, interestingly enough, too, I've been trying to get somebody on the show to talk about all these peculiar things with the moon, and I just can't seem to get anyone. The other person that I'd love to get on and that won't come on are linguists. Because, like you'd say when you're abducted or when people have contact, that it's telepathic. But I'm wondering if there isn't some sort of linguistic thing going on. Like, how would you, since we're not telepathic as far as we know, how would you talk to someone who wasn't from here? I mean, how do you even start to communicate? Language is basically the reflection of your environment and description of it. So how do you, talk to someone about that, too? I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm off the track. I'll be quiet now.
No, please.
No, it'd be very
interesting idea,
interesting
actually.
What they... Yeah, and what they sound like and how they communicate.
Yeah.
It has always been a mystery to me, because I have no feeling or memory or thoughts of any communication oral communication from them, or mind-to-mind communication either. I don't have that. It's just empty there. But I do know I come back and know things that I shouldn't know. I mean, it's a very strange thing. Very strange thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like I'm more like a computer download, type of thing.
Yeah. They have to have some sort of a written history of some sort, because otherwise they'd just be constantly recreating the wheel. There have to be some, they build knowledge and they have to transmit it to future generations. So there has to be some way to do that, to transfer information. I mean, maybe it's just computer chips that get stuck in their head, but somewhere along the line, someone has to invent something new, right? I mean, maybe that's what they're looking for here. Maybe we're still able to think, oh God, I hate to say this, but think outside the box. Sorry.
Well, some of us, anyway. I would think that a blanket statement.
But yeah, I'll tell you, I'm just absolutely fascinated by this whole thing, and I don't know. And wouldn't it be funny if when we found out it was just really boring? You know, like they were old college professors that were here, and they were just archaeologists or something, and, you know, you'd be talking to them for 15 minutes, and they go, yeah, okay, fine, goodbye. You know?
Right, okay, so that works like that. Okay, good.
There you go. All right, that's what we thought. All right.
Kate, as we kind of wind down tonight, I have one question I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
What was the most surprising thing anybody ever told you in the course of an interview?
Actually, the bulk was what really fascinated me. And John Jensen, too. This guy was fascinating. And this was factual. He was a manufacturer, retired, and I believe he was Civil War buff, whatever. He hired a plane because he wanted to take photographs of the eastern seaboard for some other reason. And what he found was deep sea harbors all the way up and down from Florida to Maine, along the eastern seaboard, out in the ocean. Then he went over to one of the Scandinavian countries and found the same thing there. And what he felt was this was a peri-Atlantic civilization with a major civilization being in the center, in other words, Atlantis. And I mean, that just sort of blew me out of the water. I just really thought that was incredible. So his book is coming out again in August, so he should be back on. But it's John Jensen, and that I think was the biggest surprise of all. And then I guess Nigel Kerner too, with that whole very unsettling idea of sentient machines trying to get some sort of humanity back into them, in a sense. That I didn't like either. And I think I really liked Richard Dolan, although he was dry, but I just liked the way he just collected data, and finally came to some really good conclusions. And but I think Jensen was the biggest surprise of all. And that's Earthbound, and that's here. So I guess I'm interested in our species, too.
You brought up an interesting subject with that, and that has to do with these lost continents. This was probably the thing that fascinated me most as a kid, was I actually got a hold of books about Atlantis and Lemuria, and it opened up a whole realm of curiosity that I've still never really satisfied in terms of, wow,
yes,
the whole concept that we have continents, entire civilizations, and the echoes are there. I mean, everything from the Bible to ancient manuscripts tell us that, you know, something happened, the earth changed, and that apparently we had civilizations that were quite spectacular hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Yeah. Well, he's under his book, or his website is Ancient Canal Builders. So if you're interested in that, he's not. He's very dry. He's very scientific. I mean, so to speak. But I think you'd find his very interesting. See, I have a feeling too, like all these Bigfoot and a lot of the saucers. I really think a lot of them come from here. I still have that feeling. Like
you just jogged my memory. That was the other question I wanted to ask you. Have you you interviewed Brooks Agnew, so you know about his work. What do you think about the idea of a hollow earth theory and the idea that we have civilizations that potentially live below the known surface? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I really. I think that's also true. And you know, birds flying over the Antarctic and all that stuff, and the Arctic. And I think there's some real truth to that. And if you go to the Museum of Natural History, it's either Bird or Perry, I forget which, but they have the journal there, and it's in a display case, and it states that he saw these tropical plants and animals, and then they closed over. I think there's something to that too. I really do. There's so much too, Chris. On this planet, there's so much right here that we don't know about. Life forms, geographical features, oceans. I mean, who knows what the hell's living at the bottom of our oceans, on the top of our mountains?
We don't.
And you don't. And all you know is what people tell you, and maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. But I do. I really have a feeling that at least some of them are from here. And
can
I add in something?
Sure.
Really quickly.
Sure.
This John Jensen, right? His first name was John, right?
Yes.
Well, he wrote to me when he first started up with his ancient canal builders, and he sent me all these maps. Yeah, all these maps of where he felt these ancient canals were. And I don't talk about coincidences in life. He didn't know me. He didn't know my background. He saw my site, I guess, a couple of times and sent me this information. And in the first day, he sent me these different locations of the canals that he thought were ancient all along the Atlantic coast. And one main one was this Great River Canal. And guess where I had my first encounter, where I was taken, that I told you about when I was 14, was right in the pinpoint that he sent me, that he felt was one of the largest ancient canals. I swear to God.
Holy cow.
And it freaked me out. It just freaked me out. We don't have time for more, but that is exactly true.
Wow.
Wow.
I guess I don't know if you could hear the bird in the background, but he's calling last outie out for the dogs here. So.
We probably should let you go visit with your new puppy and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Well, there's 3 now.
Oh, wow.
There's 3 now. Oh, great.
Birthing process, even as we're speaking. That's amazing.
Yes.
That makes the whole evening really special.
That's so nice.
Kate, I can't thank you enough for coming on tonight.
Oh, no,
sharing
thank you.
With us. This was fun.
Oh, I had a great time. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Really. But Chris and I think if we ever got together, we'd just spend the rest of our life talking to each other. So
talking, we talk ourselves up there. Forget the UFOs.
So
right.
coming up,
thank you again.
Thanks so much, Kate. And again, tell folks your radio show and where they can find you.
Sure, Kate Valentine UFO show, and it's just look that up on the internet. It's on WVNJ from the beautiful Ramapo Mountains in Oakland, New Jersey, 11/6 on the dial.
There you go. That's awesome.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Kate. Next week's show is going to be Steve Grenier, Nocturnal Frequency Radio, and this should be a pretty interesting show. The more I've seen about Steve, he goes into not only just the UFO thing and aliens, but also some of the cryptozoological things, and he apparently is into remote viewing as well. So he and I will have a great conversation with that. And Chris, you want to say goodnight?
Good night, everybody, and we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely, we will. Good night, Chris. And like I said, we'll be back next week. This is OffPlanet Radio. The truth is out there. It's inside you. Keep looking for it. We'll see you next week.